Oh, boy.
Wait a minute, is it just you and I, Vanderbilt?
Peter just is coming on. I don't see, there's Amos.
Oh,
Oh,
Stephanie, you might need to rename me here.
I can do that.
will do, Molly.
Thanks, Greg. Please.
There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, that's good enough.
I'll give them another minute or so just to see if the rest of our members come, because I haven't heard from everybody that they weren't coming, right?
I haven't heard from anyone. I thought when Amos called me earlier today, or just a short while ago, Amos, I was afraid you were calling because you weren't going to be able to attend the meeting. And I have Suzanne working on that for you.
Do we need quorum today or something?
No, there were no special, I mean, we need quorum. You have to have a quorum.
Yeah, we have quorum. Just looking to see, still no.
Wait a minute, yeah.
I'll just give it another minute and I'll read us in.
Yeah.
Just to avoid any. Check my email, see if I got any last minute emails. Peter, did you go skiing this weekend?
No, I did it last weekend. That was probably my last skiing trip of the year. I actually got a sunburn on my forearms, which is the first time.
Bob's in the room. You got a sunburn on your forearm doing what?
Oh, skiing last weekend. So the first time I can remember that I ever had like a sunburn on my, like right on my arm.
Yeah, last weekend I was on the Santa Monica Pier and I got a heck of a sunburn.
Oh wow, you've been from Santa Monica to Manhattan.
Did LA?
That's
LA,
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Greg.
Yeah.
I know that, you know,
Hong Kong next up.
This long distance is trying, but at least you're getting some traveling in.
Yeah, nice.
Right. All right. Welcome, Robert and Deborah.
Good evening.
So now that everybody's here for the party, let's read us in. Welcome, everyone, to the April 24th, 2023 regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board of the wonderful town of Easton. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the agenda, which can be found in the calendar on the front page of the town's website. While board members and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendees, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand function on Zoom, or we can make a request with a Q&A function on Zoom. If you are joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Excuse me. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second, so it will be clear to the audience and minute takers who made the motion, and all votes will be by roll call. Excuse me, clear my throat. So, to ensure we have a quorum, we will now have a roll call. Greg Strange, present. Amos Kedem.
Present.
Deborah Balseric.
Present.
Peter Deshane.
Okay, here.
And Robert Stetson.
Present.
Great. We have all 5 members of the board. Thus, we have a quorum. So, first, okay, so we continue site plan review for 661 Washington Street, which we have received a request to continue to our May 8th, 2023 meeting. If someone could make that motion.
Motion to continue 661 Washington Street, Stetson.
Kevin, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor? Strange, aye. Kedem?
Aye.
Deborah Balseric?
Aye.
Robert Stetson,
Aye.
Peter DeShane.
Aye.
Great. Okay, next we have continued site plan review 95 Belmont Street, site plan review number 27-297.
Okay, I'm trying to promote the two representatives for that project. We have Brian Dunn and Nick Youssef. Ryan, you may be getting a message that you need to accept being promoted to panelist.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening. Just give us 2 seconds, get everybody up. Pulling in. You're waiting for one more second.
No, I'm gonna see if I allow, there's Brian now. Okay.
Oh, thank God. I don't know. Can you hear me and see me? Because I can't even see myself. So
We can hear you. So if you guys, just to start off, if you just identify yourself, name and address for the record, and then feel free to present your project.
okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, and Stephanie. My name is Brian Dunn. I'm the principal of MBL Land Development and Permitting, with offices at 5 Bristol Drive in southeastern Massachusetts. And I'm here on behalf of Hala Youssef. Well, Hala and her son Nick is counsel. And we're here to discuss the redevelopment of the existing building at 95 Belmont Street.
Okay.
I don't know why you can't see me, but
Yeah, my video is off as well for some reason. I'm not sure why. So
okay.
Doesn't look like anything I can control here.
yeah, I tried all my settings, so that's okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, I know we submitted a set of site plans, but I think that what I understood from Nick and Hala is that we were discussing trying to see if there was a waiver of a full site plan review, and then we found ourselves preparing these other plans, associated with the reuse of this building. So are we still discussing a variance of the site plan, a waiver of the site plan review? Or not, Mr. Chairman?
Well, this is the first I've heard of this. So Stephanie, you want to check in on this? Or?
I didn't think it was a waiver of site plan review. The board generally, this is a change of use, meaning that the garage and an expansion of use. Let me pull up my note.
If I can just interject, Nick Youssef, Shield Law, 157 Belmont Street, Brockton, Mass. We did a waiver request to not include some of the things with respect to Section 7 of the Easton Planning and Zoning Board rules, just not to include things like lighting, things that would kind of be superfluous for what we were trying to do. And Mr. Strange, just stop me if I'm wrong. I believe what we wanted to just include in the new revised plans was just to put dimensions for the parking lot, to show sort of a two-way access for that handicap ramp, along with the dimensions for the handicap ramp, which we've made those changes and we've submitted
Right.
those.
Okay. Does anybody have, for some reason I can't access, and Mr. Youssef, I agree. So I was just a little confused there for a minute. Can someone share their screen? For some reason, I can't get anything to open on Permitize in terms of checking out.
I have the plans open, Mr. Chairman. If I can share the screen, I can.
Yeah, if you guys could share the screen and just walk us through.
Stephanie, do I have control
with
to share the screen?
Okay, so I don't know if if your video isn't working, but at the bottom of the screen should be a green square and with an arrow pointing up, and under it says share screen. And if you see that, then you can
You might need to hover
on that.
Hover over the bottom black area under the people. That
You
might
know
help.
what? I don't see any of that. You know what? Can I'm gonna leave the meeting and come back and see if things change. Okay.
Greg, I have the plan up. Would it be?
Okay, go ahead. And, okay, and no sooner do you say that finally it opened on my end. But yeah, why don't you share it for the other members?
Yeah.
That way Nick can take us through it.
Okay, can you see it?
Not yet.
Yes, we can
Yeah.
see it. I can see it now. Yes. Okay, so if you look at where the existing building is, and you can see where the lines are like at an angle, that's the existing foundation area of the building. And then we added another ramp at the request of the last meeting and aligned the handicap space to go in the ramp. So there'll be an area of flat area and then a ramp up to each entrance of the existing building.
Okay.
So, I mean, really, when we originally got involved with this project, it was really a conservation, vista pruning type of a thing because the trees were too close to the house or the building that's there.
Sure.
And trying to get that approval. We did get that approval from conservation. And then is what I understood from Nick and Hala is that, we were looking at, such minor changes to the building and adding these ramps and accesses that are really there right now. And, providing a dumpster pad for the trash. Very, very, very minor de minimis types of things, associated with a site plan. So I think that's where we were thinking that a waiver of and some of those things being waived as part of the site plan approval would be possible here.
And also, if I can just jump in, Greg, one of the things that you wanted to see too were the dimensions for the parking lot and the spaces. So if you
Yes.
go to the top left, you'll see that basically they go 9 feet wide, 17 feet and 4 inches long. So you have a better dimension of what that parking lot looks like.
Right. And these are existing spaces, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So that's one of the things we'd have to try to waive because our bylaw calls for a 10 by 20 parking space, but where these are existing, I'll let the board discuss that. Do you guys have a list, or you can just give it to us verbally? The items, I know you mentioned lighting. What you're looking to waive from the site plan process, just so the board's clear. In case they have any questions.
So we included lighting, snow removal, plantings, and other, basically those were the main things that I saw in section 7 when I drafted the waiver request.
Okay. Stephanie, do you have any comments?
No, I think most of what you'd require for site plan review was included in the plan. And that's, again, you're right, that is what they were requesting, not a waiver from site plan approval, but from a full
Sure.
Full review, I think. Yeah.
Right.
in compliance with all the rules and regulations where it already pre-existed, things like the parking area.
Pre-existed, and also we're not changing the footprint of the building, so it's
Right.
pretty much being used
Right.
for the same.
Like you say, just a minor change of use. Sure. Board members, questions or comments?
None.
Looks good to me.
Members of the public, raise your hand if you care to chime in. If not, if no one cares to make a motion, I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Motion to approve the site plan for 95 Belmont Street. Duchesne.
Second, Stetson.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Amos Kedem,
Aye.
Peter Duchesne,
Aye.
Deb Balsaric,
Aye.
and Robert Stetson.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you, Stephanie, for all your help.
Thank you, folks. And just one quick
Yeah.
question. Will it be mailed out to us, or how does it work from here on out?
Yep, it will be mailed to you.
To 95 Belmont Street?
Yes, if that's the address that was on the application. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
I know.
All right, next up, looks like we have Discussions for a surety agreement and Form F for Old Forge Commons, 20 South Street, project number 20-209. I believe I saw Mr. Humphrey in the audience.
Greg,
Yeah.
could I ask for a quick break? The Conservation Commission is meeting again, is meeting at the same time right now, and there seems to be a little problem with their Zoom link. And
Okay.
I could just go into the other room for a second and see if I can help them out. I'll be right
Sure.
back.
Mr. Humphreys, you're known to be a bit gregarious. Do you have any elevator music you could hum for us while we have this wait?
No, but I think I'd like to comment on the last meeting, the people that came before you.
But you can't.
Of course I could. I
Yeah,
just
we're ready.
thought they were nice people. They're Easton, they're natives of Easton. She has a business in Easton. I think that was nice that you guys worked with them so well. I'm sure they appreciate it.
I think we're being set up here, folks. Well, you know, we've always tried to be a helpful board here because we are.
No, they're nice people. I've known them for a long time, and their businesses. They both have, the husband and wife both have businesses in Easton, and the father.
Yeah, Lee was one of the most.
He's a very famous man in the town of Easton. He was a great person.
He was a big loss for this community. He was one.
He
of
really
those,
was.
Yeah,
He's a good man.
Can't say enough good things about Lee Williams.
Yeah, Lee Williams was a wonderful man. A lot of people don't realize the clock right there in town of Easton, right in the center of town. Lee was the one who donated that.
I remember last year, the day of his funeral, Lee would always, I was hardly the only one. He would always mail out little snippets to, you know, dozens of people in town. And he was usually good for sending me 2 or 3 things a month. And so sometimes I'll get to that later. And I was going to his funeral, and I was looking for something to bring to give to Ed Hands, and I looked down, there was an envelope from Lee, which I had completely forgotten about. So I was like, it was an article on wood turning. So he was a thoughtful, he was a thoughtful guy.
He always had his hands into everything, that guy. And he lost his wife also. Betty passed also.
Yeah, I got here clippings too. He was my very good friend, Lee.
He was
That's right. Yeah, you were very tight with him.
Yeah, I'm a very good friend. And I got another mail from him 2 days after he passed away. So with the clippings.
He was an extraordinary man. He
was a real character.
He was. I don't know how better way to put it. He was a real character.
He was.
Good man.
I loved how he put on his headstone. He had put, I told you I was sick. We're talking about the infamous Mr. Williams, Stephanie.
Oh, I gathered that. It took me a second, but.
Are we good to go, or?
Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So is Mr. Humphrey going, or is Stephanie, or you? How you guys?
Bill, do you want to explain? I mean, I can certainly.
Just, Mr. Chair, just as a reminder, I've been recusing myself on this one because of my relationship with one of the abutters. So I'm just going to jump off now.
Okay. You want me to ping you when we're done, or? You're muted. So.
I meant if you don't mind sending me a text.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I'm all set. So we have I have the construction cost estimate for the performance guarantee here, and from the engineer Patrick Brennan, and I just paid. Stephanie, you saw I paid the fee. Haven't been checking on that, but I paid that last week
For Patrick's.
Yeah, for their fees.
Inspection, yeah.
So that's all set. I paid that last week. Anyway, so I saw that the was $245,990, and the escalation cost is $81,423. And I wanted to bounce something off the board. I don't know if not, no big deal, but I'm going to do a cash surety for this. I just want to bounce this off you guys.
You want the board to hold on to the cash?
Yeah, could you guys just take it and run? No. No, so I wanted I want to run this by you guys. I don't know if it can be done, whatever, but I wanted to see if possible. If not, I'll just put the cash up. It just helps out having cash I'm getting ready to start 5 houses and cash helps. But anyway, I wanted to just bounce this off you. Is it possible? Because I have a bunch of closings this end of this week. I want to know if it's possible, if this could happen. If I could put up the 245, the total, which is a 245,990, and then have one of the lots not released, I'm sure, would be a balance of $81,000, $81,423, and hold off one of the lots just to free up $80,000 for me, because I'm going to be putting in 5 foundations, and I pay my subcontractors when they put it in, I pay them within a week. If not, I can borrow money from Northeastern Savings, I'm sure. But one thing I don't want to do is hold up the closings, because I've been telling these customers, as soon as I pave, I'm going to be starting your houses. And obviously it is wonderful weather right now. Spring is coming. And I've already met with you, Greg, last week, or the beginning of the week rather, and I've already started cutting trees. I've already talked to the building department. They said, because I don't have wetlands involved, I can go ahead and cut the lots and get them going. So I've already met with all my customers. The trees have been cut. And as soon as I get this surety and the lots released, I'm starting construction. First lot 11 will be starting probably as early as I can pull a permit on it. So anyway, I don't know if that's an option. Is it, Stephanie? I don't know.
So I just want to remind you, Bill, don't forget the part of the approval of this, those plans have to be approved by the board before you get a building permit. So you got to get those in.
I do know that, Mr. Strange. I was on the meeting for tonight for those approvals, and I just self with my righteousness and everything went to next meeting in 2 weeks. But yes, I do know that.
Okay, don't know what that means, but okay. So Stephanie,
my bleeding heart for the town said not a problem. I want you guys to get your work done tonight. So I said, yes, I will go to the next meeting.
Gotcha.
For the approval of the plans.
Correct.
That I've had in the town for quite a while, because I am a loving citizen.
Greg, would you like me to respond?
Let's mute Bill so we can get going with this meeting.
Yeah. So here's my suggestion to the board. If you're going to, so I actually have a question for Bill. When would you expect to have the inflation amount?
I could have it tomorrow. It's just, I'm saying if I can hold the inflation.
I understand. If the board agrees to, and I have a counter.
Oh, I got you. Could you give me 30 days?
My suggestion would be that the board only release the lots that Mr. Humphrey needs released now. And then when he has the inflation amount, the board could agree to release the remainder of the lots.
That would be great. That would be wonderful.
And I think that's enough. I mean, because you're talking 4 house lots?
Hold on. It would be, I got to write them down in front of my face. It's 11, 12, 14, 15, and 16. I'm sorry. It's 5. Wait a second. Oh, and 20, because I'm going to start construction that as soon as I get approvals from you guys and that. So
6 lots out of 20
6 lots. Yep, 6 lots. And I think the 14 other, and remember, 2 of the lots are the affordables.
Right. So Greg, I think that would be okay. And then we hold the rest of the lots.
Obviously, Mr. Humphries has a long history in the town.
Yes.
If for some unforeseen reason he didn't hold up his end of the bargain, we'd be able to stop any further building permits. So
right, exactly.
We're protected there. We know that's not going to be an issue. But so, board, are you guys just what we're talking? Is everybody any objections to that? You guys all okay?
So, but the cash amount that was mentioned is still part of the surety.
Yes, and he'll be putting up 245,990, right?
Tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Yep.
And the other lots just cover the other 80 or so.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
and we will, and my recommendation would be that the board not release another lot until that inflation amount is paid, is put up.
I like what you're doing for me better. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's cleaner. And yeah, in 30 days, I will have the monies to you people.
So, sounds good. So do we need to vote on that at all?
Yes, yes, you do.
Okay, so why don't we, anybody care to make a motion on that part, just to close out that?
What will the motion say? Motion to approve,
You could just say so moved. I think Suzanne has a handle on it.
Give the hard work to
Motion to-
Suzanne.
So I'll
motion to
state
approve.
it. So the board has agreed to release lots 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 20.
Mhm.
And Mr. Humphrey will put up a cash surety of $245,990, and in 30 days, will put up the 3-year inflation difference before the remaining lots are released.
So moved.
It's almost.
Second, DeShane.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Deb Balseric,
Aye.
Peter DeShane,
Aye.
Amos Kedem.
Aye.
All right, we're set with that. Now what, for me? Maybe
The
that's-
Form F is the
I mean, Form
release,
F, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, yeah.
and that's the actual lot releases, and it's for those 5 lots, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 20.
Actually, that's 6 lots. 11, 12,
Right,
14,
yeah, 6
15,
lots.
Yeah,
lots,
6
yeah.
lots, sorry.
6 lots.
6 lots.
Okay, someone wants to make a motion on that?
Motion to approve lots, and me out, Stephanie. 11, 12, 13,
15,
15.
16, and 20.
15, 16, and 20.
To release.
DeShane, second.
Peter, did you second? It was broken up.
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, Greg Strange, aye. Deborah Balseric,
Aye.
Ms. Kedem,
Aye.
and Peter DeShane.
Aye.
All right.
Your screen's not working?
He's shy.
My video, I tried everything. It's not working.
All right. Mr. Humphries, I believe that concludes our business for the night.
All right,
Correct.
so I will
Oh.
come in tomorrow morning with that check, and that's so I make that, Stephanie, I'm sorry to take up time, but do I make it out to town? What do I do? Make it
Town
out
of Easton.
Town of Easton, certified check.
And Suzanne, you can call Suzanne first thing in the morning, and she can.
Wait a second. Why did that girl just come up on the screen?
Right. I think there are 2 accounts on this Zoom. That's the problem here.
Okay. So-
Focus, Bill. Focus, Bill. We got a long night. They got to move this.
I'm sorry. So Tawny Easton, and bring
Bill,
it to-
Suzanne will send you an email.
Yes,
Oh, she will.
I'll coordinate.
Yeah, she'll send you an email with all the
Thanks,
information.
Suzanne. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
And I know Suzanne is going to ask us. So,
Yeah. Please come in to sign.
so
this
board
week.
members, we need to get the covenant signed ASAP. So I can go in tomorrow, but if anyone, we need 3 signatures. We could get those.
I will go tomorrow.
I will go
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Thank you. We need 3. Thank you.
And
Perfect.
Suzanne, I'll ping in the morning. Just make sure you're there when I know when I'm coming.
Exactly. Please do. Thank you.
All right, I just got to tell Bob to come back here. Where is it? Okay. Oh, there it is. All right. So next, I had asked Stephanie to, I know there had been a meeting that I was not privy to. but I asked her to come in and just give us an update on 3537 Paquanticut Ave, which was the historical house that we approved a special permit for duplex on. I guess it was last year. Yeah, it was last year, 22, right? Yeah, in 22. So, and yeah,
Yeah.
Bob's back. So, Stephanie, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I think the board is all aware of what happened. The board approved a special permit for the duplex, expecting that the building would be preserved. There was some interior demolition that would be done. And there was, I don't think, they were bumping out the dormer in the back of the building. And what happened was essentially a demolition. They removed more of the second story than, I would call it a second story, but the upstairs walls than was expected. The whole roof was removed, and a violation order was issued by the building inspector, basically indicating that the house had been demolished. The applicant did not appeal that enforcement, but they did come back and they believe that they are in compliance with the special permit. So the town had been contacted by the applicant's attorney and asked for a meeting. We met, town council, I and the town administrator met with their attorney, and they were asked if they have information or believe that what they have done is in compliance with the special permit, that they need to submit a document, a packet of documentation indicating that. To date, we have not received that. Town council reached back out. He's reached out a couple of times to the attorney, Douglas Deschênes, and the most recent one, which was 2.5 weeks ago now, he indicated that the board should be receiving something imminently, but we have not seen anything as yet.
Okay, so fair to say it's still in limbo then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the applicant was given permission to secure the property. That has not happened in the time since the enforcement was issued.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments, board members? While it's here? Okay. Now the long-awaited MBTA multifamily by right zoning district. I'll let Stephanie dig into this, talk about timeline and things, and just this is an opportunity to just start a discussion about this. There was a committee formed on this last year, which it was an unusual step. Usually goes through the planning board. It didn't come through us, so we weren't involved. I was able to attend 2 of the 4 meetings, having a ski accident in the middle. But I watched all the meetings, and I think it's fair to say, even if I had been present, it wouldn't have made a difference in the meetings. But anyway, so there's a big chunk of work for this board to do. I know a lot of the citizens in town are very interested in it, and so I'll let Stephanie start off and just present whatever she wants to present to you guys, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So what I thought, Greg, and I'm going to kind of turn it back to you very, very shortly, but we really need to, I think what the board needs to start doing is looking at the suggested districts. These areas were both identified as part of that review team. And also Greg had shared with me, and I shared those with the review committee when he wasn't able to attend some of the meetings, areas that he thought would be suitable for the district. The timeline is that the town needs to, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, the town needs to adopt the zoning by town meeting 2024. This means that there is going to need to be a lot of public input and support for the zoning. If the town doesn't adopt it by 2024, the town will no longer be eligible for certain infrastructure planning funding that the town has benefited from in the past. We've also heard from the Attorney General's office, which all communities were notified that the Attorney General feels that this is mandatory and that communities don't really have an option not to comply. We don't know what that means, but
when was that communication?
I sent it to the board. I think I included it in the package I sent you for the last meeting.
So like within like last month, say like a month ago or so?
I would say probably 2 months.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And I might even have it right here if I don't see it. I know I have it in my folder somewhere, but not immediately handy. But I can get that back out to the board members if you'd like. So, and I had sent her a timeline, and I figured that we can refine this over time. But basically, we have refined the potential geographical locations and completing that by no later than October of this year. And that is going through the iteration of the compliance model. What I did send everyone in the packet for this meeting was kind of a baseline. So that baseline was run against the compliance model that will be used by the Department of the Mass Housing Partnership to determine if the zoning that is developed by the town is compliant with the objectives of Chapter 3A. And what we did in that first round was take those districts and just took a baseline 15 units. Let's say that the zoning allowed 15 units per acre and parking space of 1.25 spaces per unit for one of these units in the multifamily project. And a building height, I think it was of 35 feet, which would presumably be 3 stories. And come up with a base number of what each of those districts, just looking straight at that. This is not the proposed zoning, but really basically to give it a baseline to start looking at and considering and see what you could get for the number of units. And I want to go over that compliance model a little bit, because how they do it isn't that they just say, okay, you have X number of acres and multiply that by 15 or multiply 15 by the number of acres. They actually subtract out. It's a little complicated. I have so much paperwork on this.
Upgrade design for this property in 2008. And we filed for notice of intent. And an order of conditions and permit for work were issued. And then
So I'm gonna share my screen for a minute while we go through this.
The order of conditions is not recorded to the chain of title, and this is a little bit of the background on this project. And then subsequently, Mr. Levine and his partners purchased the property in 2014 because the order of conditions and permit for work were never recorded to the chain of title.
Okay, everyone can see the screen,
Knew nothing about this.
Yes.
and this is the model results in summary. Let's see. This page right here is the one that I want. And this shows each of the different potential districts. And how it works with the model is you take the district area, which is shown on this first line here. So in the first one, North Washington Street, it's 44.21 acres. And then they multiply that by 15 to come up with the number of units straight out that you could get there. Then they have the density denominator acreage. This is the total acreage of the district minus any wetlands or other restricted land. So if there was town-owned land in the district, or if there was protected open space, that land would be subtracted out. They take that density denominator, the 37.76, and then they divide it by the density denominator. So they take the 15, they take this number here. So if it was 44.21 times 15, that would be 663 units. And then what they do is they divide that 663 units by the density denominator acreage. So in this case, that's 3776. And that would be the
Should be about like 200 or so. Or...
Yes. Let's see. Let me try that again. So we have 663. Okay, so that's, you divide that by the 37.76, and then you multiply that by the density denominator, 37.76. And that's how they get, and I get 663.15. They came up with 665.
Okay.
When I used that formulation, my number was slightly off by just 1 or 2 units.
But 44 times 15 was the 665, and then I'm guessing that the denominator, you divide the 665 by the 0.377?
By 37.76.
Yep, that's where I was getting somewhere around. So 600 whatever divided by 0.4.
Yeah, so
that's probably where that bottom number comes from.
We're anticipating getting all this work done in a couple of days, so I don't think, so it's not something that's going to be exposed for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Is there a plan at all to decommission the old leaching field? Or
so it comes up, I'm sorry, it comes up with 17.6 acres, units per acre.
Gotcha.
So you.
And then actually what we are doing is keeping we're also, so the original design, this is a grease trap, we'll stay online. This is the 4,000 gallon septic tank, which will function chamber, and then we're also gonna have, we're gonna keep the two.
So, you know, this is what
Yeah,
I,
that works out, Stephanie.
yes, yeah. I was gonna say, I can,
If there's a delay in pumping, or like if we have a pump failure, and or something like that, so we'll have a total of 6,000
Yeah.
gallons of capacity in the tanks. Basically what happens, I'm not sure how much you know about septic system, the way
But
pumps work, but basically,
but
the
we're
pump
going
is
15,
4,000
we're
gallons a
talking
day.
15 per acre, right? And then 200 per acre. That's a lot of units. That can't be, I can't imagine that being right.
So
So-
let's,
Oh, 17 per acre?
let me just type it up here. So X equal, gets divided by,
The bigger the acreage, the more units you get per acre.
right, but you know, let's not get too caught in the weeds on this.
Yeah, the difference are very small. You have almost 18 on North
Right.
Washington.
Right.
well,
and you
where
have
you
31
really
in
get,
Turnpike.
Turnpike is where you get a big difference using that denominator.
Yeah,
Right.
because it's double the acreage. It would be very nice.
Yeah,
If I could just jump in and maybe get us on track here, what I was hoping we would do tonight, and this for any folks that are watching at home. So the state came up with this program that requires any towns with MBTA service, which, right, we don't have a bus station, we don't have a train station, but we are an abutting community. So 10% of our housing stock has to be by right multifamily housing. That means apartment lot. That means 15 units per acre, within certain standards. So when that first came out, we thought, hey, you know what? Everybody was panicking because we need 913 units, and we know the appetite in town is really for many more apartments, and that's probably what the vast majorities would be. But if you looked at what we've done with Shovel Works and with Avalon and some of the other units in the town, we thought, you know what, it wasn't bad. I came up with a scenario where I thought we only needed possibly maybe 70, you know, zoning for 70 more units or 100 units. Well, unfortunately, as bureaucrats are wont to do, when they do large scale directed planning like this, which really takes away a potential for a community to remain unique and independent in that it takes over its planning. Any project that was a special permit, or any project that was, as I understand, was in a local historic district, and Stephanie will probably tell me some more points. So long story short, for example, Shovel Works, which has had over 100 units, we're not allowed to use that, even though the way we laid things out in town, that's exactly the goals of this. And we had hoped to include our downtown. If there's a local historic district, it can't be included. So even though we have lots of apartments that could meet the density downtown, we can't use that. So then, now Avalon we can still use, correct, Stephanie, on this?
you can use Avalon. The reason you can't use the Main Street area in Shovel Works is because it's a local historic district,
Right.
and it's restrictive. And because of that restriction, because someone would need to go for a certificate of appropriateness for a project, it would restrict the ability to develop at the 15 units per acre by right. The idea is that you should be able to submit your, you don't even need to, well.
I understand that. I just gotta cut you off. So, I understand it, but I just want to say one thing as a citizen of the town. I'm disappointed that our political leaders didn't, again, looking at what we've done, Easton, we play with the hands that we've been dealt. We're a small industrial town. The center was formed. We've done 40B projects. We've done 40R projects. We have a much higher percentage of housing, low-income housing created on that than any other similar community by far in the state of similar communities. And it's a shame that I really wish the folks at had gone to bat for the town because we had done yeoman's work downtown, and it's a shame that the generic the organic diverse housing that we all work so hard to create. And by that, I say we, the citizens that have served on boards, and we, the citizens that have approved it, and we, the fine folks that work for the town. We've all worked diligently and collaborated. And it's a shame that that didn't, that nobody went to bat at the state to say, hey, wait a minute, because we're unique. Look what we've done. We don't need, we don't have a train station. We abut these, but we've developed along our corridors. We've brought in pocket sewer treatment plants. But anyways, that's
but Greg, there were communities who did that, and it didn't change the mandate.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean but again, I'm just disappointed. I didn't see our political leaders even attempt to do that, and that's a shame.
And I think that what you're trying.
If I could just finish, Stephanie. So what I'd really like to do tonight is find out if you, and I don't know if you or Wayne have this. Do we have a number of units? What are the number of units that we need to get? I know we need to hit 913. How many in the districts that you and Wayne have created? How many units do we have that exist now?
I don't have that.
Okay, so at some we should get that, because to me, I think I think for the board and then the town to do this to the best of our ability and to do what's best for the town would be to see what we need. Then we can look at different districts. And as Stephanie said, I threw a bunch last year. They were sort of taken away and edited and tweaked. We should maybe at the next meeting we should look at those and say, okay, hey, this district, the way it's laid out, has X units. This district would have X units. And then this board can decide what to present to the town, at town meeting, or, to the selectmen, the whole process that goes through. To me, what I thought was a good approach was because we had done such yeoman's work in really creating what this law was trying to do. We'd already done a great job of it. Unfortunately, so much of it had been taken away. And the ability to get really, to use some ingenuity to lay out these districts has gone by the wayside. So now, are we going to, okay, are we just going to pick one spot and put them all right there? Are we going to sprinkle them through the town? Because I think at some point this board's going to face quite a bit of feedback from the residents in town once they catch wind of that this is coming on. So it'd be good to know what this board used as its motivation, as its directive to create the districts that it's going to propose. And hopefully this board will propose districts. I mean, I know, it came out of the study again, what this board wasn't part of. Then it went, now there's a tool, and now 2 or 3 consultants have been hired or have been, the town received some grants. Haven't been involved in it, so we don't really know. But I'd like to see this at some point actually get back to the citizens and the citizen reps that have been appointed and elected by this town, so that we can have a say as residents in how we're going to handle this. It's happened in some of the towns that have been progressive with this. There has been a lot of citizen input. Hopefully we can get to that point. But I think we need to find out how many units we have that will be counted against the 913, and then say, okay, so we need to come out with X units. And then this board can decide where it feels the best locations are for myriad reasons to put zoning to. Because again, you don't have to create these units; you just have to have the zoning in place to create these units.
Yeah.
So anyway, so go ahead. I just wanted to kind of get that out there.
No, that's.
I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. And then in terms of the rest, in terms of the lot sizes and ratios and all that, I think that's a little further up. I think we need to just be a little more organic right now and say, okay, where do we think these should be?
So if we can start,
if I may, I think I want to reinforce the fact that any resident will ask that question, what we have done already, how that counts. And I have been asking that question for a while in many projects that we have been launching lately, if that will apply to the MBTA in position. And I didn't get a clear answer. And I think that's The first thing, the residents that are interested in not changing the the nature of this town radically by getting these high density buildings in the middle of whatever uh, is important. And the second question I have is, okay, input from residents and listen to the residents. Is there any plan for that, or this will be come down from the town government the way it's coming until now?
So Amas, I'm having a hard time understanding you, and especially the last question you just asked.
Yeah, I didn't get the
The
second.
last question is, how do you get the residents involved so we don't continue imposing from the government without listening?
So that's a really good question, and it's a really important part of this. One of the things that DHCD in their guidelines, and when they were talking about this last year, was stressing that there really needs to be strong public outreach and public involvement. And so one of the things I was going to mention tonight is that, and I agree with Greg about kind of focusing on the zoning, that we're at the beginning of this and looking at the different districts and what exists. And I do have some answers and thoughts on that, Greg. The other is that we should be developing probably within a meeting or two, starting to look at and talk about what that public outreach looks like and how to engage the public to make sure that they are involved and they do have an opportunity to weigh in. So you're right, Amos. That's a very important factor.
Is that involvement before we present any proposals for zoning changes? Has to be, right?
Yes, I mean, I think it's easy. I think what we do, once this board has worked on this for a little bit and has a good handle just really of the bylaw. We haven't really talked about this, and I mean, it really hasn't. This board hasn't been involved in it. This has been different than any other zoning process in the 18 years I've been around here. And I think I think we keep it simple. We don't overthink it. I think we put some blast out on what's the Friday newsletter.
The Town Crier.
Yeah, put it on the Town Crier, put some stuff on the town's website. There's enough people, and we contact people. There's enough people that want to be involved in this, or want to have a say. That people are a little, concerned about it. And then we hold a meeting wherever, high school, one of the school auditoriums, because I think you'll get a big crowd. And I think it needs to be that way. I think to do it over Zoom would be chaos. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to get back. This is, unfortunately, this is, as someone who has been on multiple boards in town for a while and gave it my best and tried to do it for the right reasons. This is really some of the most disappointing results that I've ever seen, because we just, towns should become, I'm not anti small A or large A affordable housing. You all know that. I've advocated for it. I brought on some of the most cutting edge zoning any small towns have done around here. And if we had an easier environmental sector to work with, we could have done more, but it is what it is. But, I think it's a shame that we really risk losing what makes Easton special, because I think we're going to be fighting. There's going to be political will here to just put up as many large scale apartments as we can, because there's definitely a thought and a belief in the administration of this town that that's the way to go. Just go, and we've been fighting. We've been trying to do compact neighborhoods. We've been trying to do different diversified housing. And, I know I've had discussions with these people. They want just as many large scale apartments as they can. And I'm not anti-apartments, but boy, we've had an awful lot of those have come on the last few years. We haven't had very diversified housing. And that's why I'm disappointed that all that special work we did do in the local historic districts and all has it can't be counted against that. So we're going to be forced to put up, several hundred additional apartment units, and that's going to really need some thought how we're going to do that so that it doesn't. I don't want Easton to become just like every other town, just plunk down big economy boxes. Nothing wrong with high density housing, but it doesn't get done as creative as some of the other ones, especially once you take special permit away, when it's by right. And it says, oh yeah, we have a site plan review and we're able to have a say on what buildings look like. But you know what, we've been doing that through special permit, and I'll tell you, many of the buildings that we've approved haven't been built anywhere near what they were supposed to, because there's no mechanism in place to inspect that and to in the town's answer would be, well, go with peer review, hire an architect to go and review all this stuff, and then you're just watering down the core values of your town and watering down the involvement of the citizens even more. So it just melts down into just another community. And it's a shame, especially where we're so reliant on residential tax base. It'd be a shame to see more of our commercial space just taken up with big box, non-attractive, add nothing to the aesthetic apartment buildings. But that's where we're headed.
Yeah, Greg, I just want to say that in the conversations I've had with people, they are really looking for thoughtful zoning for the area and relying on the planning board to do that, as you've done in the past, and that it isn't just about plunking down a large box in somewhere.
I'd probably believe that a little more, Stephanie.
Sure,
as the chair of the planning board, I have been told about this zoning.
If I could, just
and if I hadn't learned by getting a letter when I was invited with 16 other people in town to be on a committee where I wasn't even recognized once to speak. So, I understand. I understand your position. I understand where you work. But and I'm going to be respectful and polite. But don't tell me that. Just don't tell me that, because it just hasn't been true, and it will continue not to be true.
So if I could share my screen for a minute and maybe start looking at some of the district and answer the question. I'm not able to, I wasn't sure when I said I couldn't answer this. So everyone can see that I have on my screen this area in blue.
Yes.
Okay, this is the Avalon development. And then these are other areas because they're located within Avalon. Avalon already meets the, I think it's 18 units per acre in that development. So, and I think it's just at or under 25 acres, which is the minimum amount of one of the sub-districts. So the town has to have 50 acres of by right zoning. They can have sub-districts, but at least one of the sub-districts has to be 25 acres. So you could just add another parcel to this and you'd get your 25 units per acre. And you have 15 units per acre there. And that has 290 units. So you can see that you could get a pretty good number of units in there to contribute towards that 913. Now, the question is, does the board want to consider adding more area in this area? To Greg's point, how many more units could you get? And that was what the baseline report was, just to demonstrate what you could get with if you had all the areas in blue. You could subtract some of those. We could run the model again, see what those numbers would come out to be. I don't think you'd add to this district. Then the other thing you might want to contemplate is how might you incorporate, so let's say commercial and mixed use. Is that through a density bonus? Might you consider that if you have the 15 units by right, however, if you added commercial to that, it could be an additional unit, which is similar to some of the zoning that the board has already implemented and the town has already voted for.
But I guess just getting back to the initial point, I mean, the statute is quite vague. The guidance, I'm assuming based on what you've presented here tonight, Stephanie, is that there's a mathematical calculation that can be done so that we can pinpoint, as you know, the planning board and the town, what we need to do to comply with, you know, the guidance promulgated by the department. So I guess the fundamental question that we all need to know before we start talking about districts, although I think what you've provided here is helpful, I think we need to understand what is the baseline that we need to, you know, rise above in order to thoughtfully plan, you know, these districts kind of the way that Tara has been talking about and you've been talking about. So I think that's what we need to understand in order to move forward in any kind of constructive way.
Right. And I think, again, I think that's what the compliance model tries to do for you, is to give you that baseline. I mean, one of the things we can do now,
right. But what's the answer, Stephanie? I mean, what, you know,
Right.
can we get everything by converting this blue zone here by right with a minimum of 15 units?
So this is Foundry Eastman, and you could get it a total unit capacity of 1,357 units based on the calculation. So let me jump back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Summary, is that it? So this is Foundry Eastman. You have district acreage of 90, so you're over the 50, minimum 50 acres. And the unit capacity that they calculated is 1,357 units. Now, again, that's including 3-story. But that's 15, and actually that's at the flat 15 units per acre too.
So are you basically saying that we could cut that in half almost and still?
Well, you have to have 913 units in total. Because remember, it's not just the 50.
But not half, but we could reduce that. But we could essentially,
yes.
I guess what you're saying, and this is helpful for me, just understanding the magnitude here, what you're suggesting is that district alone presents sufficient opportunity to address these issues.
Right. And this district.
You can subtract.
Amos, hang on just a second. And Bob touches an important point. I think we're making this more difficult than it should be. What I'd like to see is, for our next meeting, I'd like to see how many units we need. You know, how many do we have that count against this? Or do we have any that, you know, does Avalon, if it just stands on its own, does that, you know, have enough?
So you're looking, just to be clear, you want to know where we have a development on a lot, and on that lot, it meets the 15 units per acre.
Right, exactly. Early on, we talked about, you know, Queasy Commons. We talked about, you know, downtown. We talked about Eastman Street. We talked about Shovel Works, and then a lot of that got wiped out for the reasons we've already discussed. So hold on. So I think what we need to do, so that the board can get to the important part of this is deciding where and how it's going to be done. So once we know, and I guess it could vary a little bit, but once we know how many units we need to get, then it would be ideal. And I keep hearing about these compliance tools, and we have all these planners that are helping us. So normally I wouldn't ask for this, but there's so many people involved. I think it would be great if all these districts that you've shown, for example, you just had the Eastman district up there, and it includes, you know, maybe a dozen parcels. Each one of those parcels, we should have the size of that parcel and how many units would be allowed there. That way, because we can look and say, okay, well, there's an existing shopping plaza there. So is that really going to go to apartments, or hey, that's fine, wink, wink, we can make it work? Or, you know, or the board can look at that, or, you know, Shaw's. Or do we really want to see Shaw's become a 3-story building, all apartments? Think about it. But so if they can look at it for parcel by parcel, if we know we need 600 units, then we can look and say, okay, well, let's put 200 over here. Let's put 200 down there. Let's put 200 down there. Or the board may decide, hey, let's put all whatever X hundred of them in one place. But I think what it would really for the board to have conversations between itself and then to present to the public. I think if we had, and these seems pretty simple to break this out. I mean, it's going to take someone a day, but again, there seems to be a lot of people
Yeah.
working on this. So if we could have that, then the board's going to have the tools to kind of mix and match and put together a zone that it feels it can be proud to present, or at least present to the town. I don't know if it's
Right. So that's where we're trying to get to, Greg. Perfect.
So
May I suggest first?
I want to ask
Yeah.
Greg a question. Greg, if this table that is in front of us has a few more rows, and one of the rows is how many units on each one of these districts already count for MBTA that we don't have. So even on the one that Boundary Eastman, they have certain amount of units already.
Right.
So if you want to calculate, you need to have that so you can maybe chop that district, make it smaller. I don't know what you do.
I think I think a good way to start would be to do the full exercise for the Avalon, target area. Have the consultants help us with that area, get it really, get it correct, and then we'll give it to DHCD, have them tell us if we did it right. If we did it, we'll say, if we did it this way, is this actually acceptable? And then we'll know what that has, and we'll actually have a blueprint for looking at other areas, right? Like we're trying to figure out between 5 different places, which ones are going to work, and we don't even know. Everyone else has said, what we can really do there. So if we looked at this one, that is kind of seems like the most realistic option, then actually really kind of get it close to understanding all the numbers. Then we could start to understand this and kind of model it out based on the rest of the possible.
Sure, but I want to bring up something that's important, and I think what's being missed so far, what I've seen the municipality and the administration working on, and even that approach, Peter, with all due respect, is just looking to check off boxes. And we're planners. We need to look at this. I think, first of all, this should be laid out instead of a chart that really doesn't make any sense. And and I think just take each one of these districts, take each parcel, and say, okay, it's 8.5 acres. You could have 32 units here. Whatever the numbers are. Because, for example, look at it's great. Dump them all up at Eastman Street. At Avalon. Problem is, as someone who lives about a mile from there and am there 2 or 3 times a day, that now, ever since the Starbucks opened, it has been discovered. Traffic in that place is terrible. It's a little dead end street. So it's not, but that thing's landlocked. We unfortunately the previous administration didn't listen to some of us that wanted an easement to go through to Clover Valley Farm. But so it's this little landlocked piece, which it's not going to be that easy to suddenly dump 400 apartments up there. It's actually a pretty treacherous road right now.
No, and I agree. I'm not even saying that we need that would be the end result, but that would be a way to to look at one area and then know that.
I understand, but I guess I'm just saying
it's going to work.
You know what? I put these districts when I've worked. This doesn't represent what I did, but I put the districts together last year when requested. It took me a half day, and I'm as dumb as they come. So we have all these people working on this. It's not that hard. You look in the assessor's map, or they have GIS. The lot size pops up right there. So it's just simple math. Okay, 15. This is 15 acres. It's 15 per acre. Boy, you can get 225 units on that. Plunk down that way. We can look at 5, 6, 7, 10 districts with all the parcels of land in there. We can see what could be had on there, and then we can kind of mix and match. And this board can decide how best to do it. Seems like we're just getting really stuck in the weeds here early on with bureaucracy and administration. It's like, let's be planners. Let's be organic. Let's think out of the box. But more importantly, let's think what's best for this town. Where are the areas that can absorb this traffic? Where are the areas that could benefit from, this area already has economic development happening with all of the, clearly we need to get the 300 Avalon units in there. And we know someone's already looking to do another unit or 2 there. And hey, put them all in one place, and you know what? No one's going to tear that building down, and great, we won't get those apartments. Well, what if they do tear that building down? So we need to be a little.
How do you collect that information for each one of these districts? So you can.
Simple. You go to the GIS map online.
Yeah. So if I could, please, Greg. That is absolutely what everyone wants the board to do, is to be thoughtful and think about it, and not just pick an area and say one and done. It's to be thoughtful and think about
Sure.
the economic growth.
Now, when can we have the information so that we can be thoughtful?
So it is easy, but not quite as easy. I mean, if you want every single, the way the model works is they take an area and they subtract out the undevelopable, I mean, they subtract out, as I said, any restrained or restricted land. And then they calculate they have a calculation for the height restriction and for the parking restriction. I think it would be helpful if we went through and kind of looked at the districts and had an idea of, based on what you know and what exists already within the district, the type of zoning that has been passed there, and where you'd like to see the district go in saying, is this district feasible? Do we want to focus on that? And then we can run it again through the model. I mean, that was the purpose of the baseline, was really to kind of get an idea and then maybe hone in a little bit more. But with all the things in mind that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems, again, I haven't been privy to this. There's been a lot of people working on this, but I don't really see.
Well, Greg, you were
really
invited to the meetings with the technical assistant.
And yeah, we won't really talk about what happens behind the scenes for real. I just think that it would be best for the citizens of this town and best for the citizens on this board if we could be presented with these districts that you are all proposing, just broken down with how big the districts are. I mean, I'm sorry, the parcels are, and what can be developed on them. It can't be that difficult. And
so, Greg, if you add a tabulated form, the information on this table that is in front of us, what other, so number of parcels, size of parcels, what you need to add to each one of these districts in order for the information to be enough. And then actually you need to add some other information like the traffic, the access, and all these other things. It's not that easy. It's really a planning effort of hours looking at all the additional information that is not the calculated numbers. Even the size of the parcels is relatively simple. You can put minimum, maximum, medium, range, whatever that, so you have an idea what each of these districts have. But when you come to things like access, how close it is to commercial centers, or what other aspect of the planning that you need to take into consideration for selecting that district for this, it's not that easy, because some of that information is qualitative, is opinion.
yeah, well, all due respect, Amos, I just disagree. I don't think it's all that difficult. It takes time, and we can't do it. We're volunteers. I used to do stuff like that, but I actually had to go back and start making money again. Look at you look at a parcel, go right on GIS. It gives us the size of the parcel. It gives you. We're not going to go and delineate each property, obviously. It gives you roughly an idea where there's wetlands. I mean, that's what we've done every time we've done zoning. And again, you know what? You guys decide to do however you want to do this. I'm just trying to. I thought the method what I'm pointing out seems to be simple. Really doesn't involve that much work, and I think can be a little more holistic and more a more successful approach. Because when you put up charts like model results, it doesn't look like anything. We're planners. We use maps. We use plans, and people can understand that a lot more. And I think you can do a better job analyzing and deciding how to craft the district. Because we can look at this and say, okay, this gives us 1,500 units. I'm not saying it says that. Just an example. Okay, well, we don't need 1,500. We need, or that's not. Do we decide we're going to go for 15, or do we want less? I know there's some people in town want us to get 15% of our income, another 500 units, because they want to, if someday we may have a train here. So they want to have that now. Not a popular stance with many people, but that's out there. So I just think if we have numbers, if we have graphics that show us what each of one of these parcels represents and could be potentially, it would really help us do a great job with this. And it, I really don't think it's that difficult. And I just said it because seems like there's all sorts of people working on this. We've got a couple of grants, but if the effort's going elsewhere, it's going elsewhere. I'm trying to cut to the chase and get us to a solution that will actually let the citizens participate in a successful attempt to do something that doesn't destroy our town.
So Greg, we can go back and have a conversation and see if they can break it down the way you are asking to see it. I would also ask, do you have availability that there's no reason you can't be part of the conversation, and it would be great to have you part of the conversation so that they can hear it right from you.
I've always been available, but I haven't been called on, so the clock's ticking. We better hurry. I don't have much time left.
Stephanie, or everyone in general. So it sounds like the first step, which Stephanie, you mentioned, it sounds like you can work on, would be to just determine how many of our existing units can count towards this. So I feel like once we know what that number is, I think that would also be very helpful.
And we can show those.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, we can show those areas on a map. We can show the numbers. That's not hard.
So once we know how much how much we need minimally, that will help. And then I think if you just kind of quickly look at this clearly, without even in advance of doing the study that Greg's talking about, which I agree, I think that information is available. And like, even if it's not completely thorough, I think it can help give an indication of, how much land is truly available, based on doing a little research. But it looks like, like Turnpike South has the most potential acreage, but maybe we don't even need that much. So I think once we know how much we need, that helps. And then the other question I had was, okay, so then our job is to essentially determine or create these zones or districts that are going to potentially be candidates for this development, correct? Right. Okay. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because we've determined that these particular areas are ones that we think would be best suited for that development, that there won't be some other developer that wants to develop them in a different way, in which case we potentially might have to look at other areas should we allow some other development to go through, right? Like it's like a working, always potentially changing model, isn't it?
That's a good point.
Sorry, I'm not sure I really followed that.
Like, so let's just say we decide, just for simplicity's sake, that the Foundry Eastman area is the best way for us to get the rest of all the housing in that we need. And we say that's where we designate it to be. And then, I don't know, 3 months later, before any of this MBTA community has a chance to get developed, some other developer comes and says, oh, actually, we want to build A, B, and C, which has nothing to do with this.
That conforms with the current zoning or the underlying zoning.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, this is kind of like, we probably need to look at this in general. It's a growing, constantly changing, potentially fluid thing.
So do a nice 40B over there, because we know you're going to do a pretty good job, and we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place anyway. So if that's the land that you want to build it on, then go for it, right? So.
Yeah, to kind of build on what you said, Deb, remember, this is not a mandate to build. It is to have by right zoning, 15 units per acre, understanding too that the whole district has to be able to accommodate 913 units by right. So someone could come in by right. and build this. It doesn't mean that you have to gut your underlying zoning, the special permits that you might have for other projects. It just means that the multifamily has to occur by right. And it doesn't mean that someone's not going to come in and develop it differently. You're not dictating to the developers.
Stephanie, has the town confirmed that, like, that say Avalon, a 40B would count towards the housing stock?
The answer is yes, but that's not really what you're doing. You know that Avalon as it exists. So,
well, Avalon counts, but a regular special permit doesn't count. But Avalon counts even though they had to circumvent.
The fact that it exists doesn't negate the MBTA zoning, and it doesn't. I mean, it's already there. It's on the ground, and it meets the 15 units per acre.
It just fits in that, right? It fits in there because there are no other further special permit restrictions on that area.
Right.
In other words, if we change the zoning to be by right there with 15 units per acre, no harm, no foul, because it's already there. But you know, you can probably, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying we would want to do this, but you know, you can probably game it a little bit by making an incremental increase in the density in that area, you know, knowing that nobody's going to come in and knock down, you know, all those buildings just to gain an incremental increase in the units. I mean, there are ways of kind of manipulating, I don't want to say manipulating, but there are ways of addressing this in a way that's not as scary and threatening as, you know, just going into this one area and saying, you know what, all 913 units are going to go right there. I think you can pick up numbers without any real change in a specific location.
And I think that goes to what Greg is saying about being thoughtful about.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with everything everyone's been saying.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. The Turnpike Street South, the way it looks like you could just say, hey, 15 units per acre, and you know, we're one and done. But think about the location. It doesn't really meet kind of the idea of being, we don't have anything near any real transit center, but it's not near like a neighborhood type mixed use developed area. It's not in a walkable area. Is that really the ideal place to put that type of housing? I
mean, look, I think that this is an opportunity for us to continue the conversations that we've been having the last couple of years about walkable neighborhoods. You know, I agree with the chair about the way that this has been kind of thrusted upon us by the legislature.
And everyone
but
agrees.
You know, you take an opportunity, and I think that maybe this is a good way for us to kind of continue, some of the goals that we've been trying to achieve the past couple of years.
Bob, I was waiting for you to say when life gives you lemons.
That's what I was thinking in my mind.
Hey, folks, I have to jump out. I have a family obligation. And I was gonna have to recuse myself at the end. So I would hope we'll have this. You guys continue discussion. We'll have this on the next agenda. And hopefully,
and Greg, I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, hopefully we can get some of those answers so that we can have a more, we can really get into it next week a little bit. Great. Thank you all. Peter, the helm is yours.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys think it's appropriate at this point that maybe we could get some of the feedback that we've requested, like Deb and Greg, and start looking at it from that alternate angle, and then hopefully that will spur more productive discussions and we can start looking at some of the districts in more detail.
Yeah.
If this is a good point to kind of move on from the conversation, or what should we keep?
Sounds good to me.
I think we have a good starting point, and I think Stephanie, the way you showed the map in blue that just showed that one area, I think even just having like a visual of like, okay, this is that area, and this is looking back at that chart, and then like you said, and then if there is a way to integrate how much of our existing housing counts towards those numbers. And I also do think you just said it, and I was going to say it, but just to reiterate too, I feel like this idea of transit oriented development, like I've been hearing about, it's been in the works for quite a long time. And I feel like it seems so insane considering we're not actually, like you said, there's no train or anything. But I do think if we're going to be mandated to do it, I mean, we should be looking at you know, currently, unless there's any kind of, you know, plans that really seem might come through for other transit, which I mean, you know, the whole history of the train in Easton has been a long one. And since I've lived here, like, you know, we're still far away from anything in Easton actually happening. So I feel like based on where there is transit, I think it's important to probably look at what makes the most sense, as you said, to what areas are most readily able to access that the existing transit, because that's the whole point of this is like what the state is encouraging, like to have development in as close proximity. And then, as you mentioned, like, okay, so if it's not so close, like, can you walk there, ride your bike there? Like, what other ways can you get there? So that's really, I think if we kind of think about the intent of it too, that might help like rule out some of these areas. It just doesn't, some of these areas probably just don't really make that much sense.
Right. Like, and again, I think when we look at it, even though Northeastern is where the commuter rail would be proposed in its kind of, I'd say, former rendition, still hasn't been completely taken off the table, but it would be surprising if it moved forward. But you look at that area, if that transit never happens, well, okay, it's close to, you know, it just might not be a great area. You look at Turnpike Street, it really doesn't make sense. You look at Eastman and what we're trying to do with that whole Furnace Village district and make it more walkable, opportunities for people, you know, some work opportunities, recreation opportunities. Those type of areas seem to make more sense for where you'd want to locate.
And that might be a good exercise at some future point to have, like, you know, a superimposed map that shows where are the transit centers that people are trying to get to, you know, like just as a visual. Cause like, I don't know, maybe the train station in Mansfield is further away than I realized from, if you're located on Washington Street and you're going to Stoughton or Brockton. Like, I'm not sure exactly what the mileage is.
Well, if you're, that's a good point. We can look at that.
Right, even you consider that, you know, if you go to, or at least when I used to take the train, you know, if you go to, you know, to Stoughton, then, you know, you're in South Station in no time. If you go farther west, it's like there are a bunch of hops, and it's, you know, it's a longer trip. I mean, you know, from Stoughton, it's just like you know, at least it used to be, you were in South Station before you knew it. Whereas now it's kind of like, you know, there are more stops, and it's not as direct a route, obviously.
But you need to get to the station, and you need to park, and there's a problem of parking in Mansfield. So the people living in, let's say you put something on Avalon area, how do they get to Mansfield Station and park there? There is no public transportation. At least there is none now. They would take an Uber to that.
But that's not our mandate.
I don't think our mandate is to, you know, break the logjam. To break, but no. I actually don't think that it has anything to do with the commuter issues. Let the legislature carry that water. We're the planning board, and I personally, and this is just me talking, I think that we have to try to comply with this. But I think that we need to do what's best for Easton when it comes to this issue. And I, quite candidly, I don't really care where, you know, how close it is to an MBTA station or whatnot.
I was making that point.
Yeah, no, then I'm in agreement with you.
It doesn't make any sense. All of this doesn't make sense.
But
So
that's
I
not,
agree
but that's
with
what the
you.
whole, that, isn't that what the whole point of this is, Stephanie? I thought my understanding.
You know what the
That's
whole
the
point
point,
of it
but not
really
from our
is, Deb?
perspective.
The
From the
whole point
legislature's
is
perspective.
affordable is housing, is to try to address the housing need in the state, which the housing crisis is national. It really is to try to provide housing, and the way you get more, this is the thought, the philosophy, the way you get more affordable housing is you construct more housing.
And
there is a
create more
big need.
density in
Right.
areas that might be more closely connected to
Right.
mass transit opportunities, right?
Yeah, so if you transit is really
like
ideal.
Nantucket would not be a great spot for it, because you can't build a lot of density in Nantucket and get to where most of the in-person jobs are by some sort of a quick boat or something. Whereas I think
Bob made me think when he talked about this is because this is just a bylaw zoning doesn't mean that anything will really happen. This is we can say whatever we want and put whatever we want in the bylaw, but if the developers are not there to do it, it will not happen. And as just thinking about this, so let's say we create a zoning in Avalon and we take all that point, and suddenly you will have a developer that wants to put something on the turnpike, and it's not done for that. So what do we do and how that comes? All this is deficient by the fact that the legislator is imposing with a brush like this, dictating this. It's wrong. It's a wrong way to plan and develop for Massachusetts. Sorry, it is.
Yeah, just a big change from the way things been for.
It's just a preference for by right. I mean, I think that it's no secret what a lot of zoning has done to the housing crisis in the past 40, 50 years. And I think that the legislature is just trying to break that logjam. I don't think by right is necessarily a bad thing, but I agree with, Greg and everyone else who's been making the point that we have to do it thoughtfully. And that's kind of what we are, is sort of the gatekeeper, if you will, from what the legislature is trying to do to increase the housing and looking out for the best needs and representing the citizens. So look, everything that has been said to this point, I'm in agreement with. And I think we just need, as a board, to understand the numbers a little bit better so that we can look at the different districts and figure out what we think makes sense, and then get some citizen input and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and that really is the whole point of what we're trying to do here, is what does the board need to really start digging into this process? And I've heard it, and we will start working.
What is the output from the board? Options? So the public can discuss, or option, or one option, or many options? It might be more than one option here.
Well, we're not there yet. I think we need to look. I think possibly, and there's always the no action option too, right? That's always like whenever you look at like a study, you always have the no action option as just so people understand what might happen. You understand the repercussions of not making any bylaw changes. So yeah.
That's actually a fair question that I wanted to ask Stephanie, because I had seen something in the media. Well, I guess the Attorney General had mentioned a few weeks back or a couple of months back that there was going to be some kind of enforcement. I didn't see that in the statute, so I was curious if you've had any discussions with town council about it.
There will be plenty of people that ask what happens if we don't do anything. So
right. I think it's a very good question.
Well.
Everyone's asking the question, and the Attorney General has just basically stated, and I really thought I had shared that with the board. So if I didn't, I will send that out. But basically, the Attorney General, I think what was happening is communities, and the way the guidelines were written, if you didn't comply, at least initially, you would not be eligible for those certain funding grants.
Right, which
There
some,
was always
which some towns, some
implications.
people could live with, right? So,
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
There were always implications that there might be additional penalties, but there was never anything overt. And then what was happening, I think, were communities were starting to dig their heels in, and we're just not going to move forward. We don't need the money. And what I heard, and this is really a high level rumor, was that some of the probably more wealthy, more affluent communities that had, better tax revenues were basically saying, we don't benefit from the MassWorks grants anyway. We don't take advantage of them. So they weren't going to move forward with the zoning. And I believe that's probably what precipitated the Attorney General's office saying, no, this is a mandate and you need to comply. There has not been any word out of the Attorney General's office on what that might mean, what kind of penalty, what kind of repercussions.
So is this regulation or is it law?
It's a law.
Well, there is a difference between the two.
Well, then the Attorney General somehow kind of makes like an interpretation of that law, right? To say, no, actually, this is the way it's going to work. So,
right.
Well, I mean, the statute itself is simple, and it specifies what the violations call for, and it's the grants and the funding.
Yeah.
I didn't see any penalties to towns. I guess the question I have in my mind is whether the Attorney General is going to be able to compel communities in some fashion
and how
to
they
comply, and what's that look like?
I think that's a good.
And I just don't know. I mean, I guess the legislature, if everybody ignores this, I guess theoretically the legislature could come back and, add some stiff enforcement penalties or something like that. But I just don't know what that would look like.
Well, on the other hand, contrary to what my one thing, if it is not money, the residents have all the rights to reject this mandate.
That is the part that in Amos, really, that's what it comes to. That's where the big question is in my mind. If the Attorney General is saying you have to comply, but the voters voted down.
Yeah, I mean, also, those of us that are over 18 can vote for our state reps anyways, but I mean, it never comes down to that really, at least, but that's not a conversation for this, but yeah.
But again, I think to me, it's encouraging. I mean, what I'm hearing is this is, okay, we've been handed this, it's been mandated, but the board really wants to be thoughtful about how to respond and make it work.
We can present the best possible, let's say, option with pros and cons, okay? For discussion, I will assume, before we draft the last one that goes into bylaws and vote for approval, right? I think, is that the process? We get maybe one or two options here, and in each one of those we put pros and cons, and we bring this to discussion to a different bigger forum than the board, or we do that internally, we come up with one option and we put that on the bylaws. What is the process? How do we do it?
Again, the board needs to kind of work through where do you feel the zoning would best be suited? What would you like that zoning to look like? Because again, as I mentioned earlier, you could have an area where you're strictly looking at the zoning being the multifamily by right. You could look at it and feel that let's say the 15 units per acre is the maximum that you want to do in that particular district. And you feel like maybe housing is just do the multifamily housing. You could add a density bonus. There might be some of the commercial areas where it looks like that would make sense to have some of the housing, but also you want to encourage more commercial growth. So you could have a density bonus. You could do 15 acres by right, and then you could do, but you could have additional units, and you could have up to a max, additional units up to a max, like the the clause that you had just recent, like you have in the zoning today. And you get additional units because we want to see if you have commercial and if you have a certain percentage of commercial. You can do mixed use by right without a density bonus, but you still have to be able to demonstrate that you would get a reasonable number of the multifamily units by right. There is an affordability component, so you want to think about that. You can require that as of right, you could do up to 15 units or whatever. It could be more than 15 to get to that 913 units per acre. And 10% of those units need to be affordable. If the town wanted that affordability number to be higher, you have two options. And this is where it gets kind of convoluted, because the first option is that you have a financial analysis done to demonstrate that it would be financially feasible for a developer to come in and develop the 15 units per acre with, say, 20% of the units affordable at the either 80% or lower AMI. Or you could use a density bonus. You could say, again, you can do X number of units by right with 10% affordable, and we would allow you to do X number more if you did a higher percentage of affordable. So once you figure out the districts, then you can start looking at the zoning and how you want to actually do the zoning. And the template that they have, it was 52 pages long, but they had a lot of explanation in it. If you actually look at the zoning itself, and if you apply it as a zoning overlay, I think it's probably a really good place to start. So we don't have to kind of start right from scratch on it. But that's just a suggestion, and we can talk about that more as we get closer to actually talking about what the zoning should look like.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. You guys like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is meeting minutes. And I saw one set of minutes in the packet. Is that right? Or were there two? Just one?
I think there's just one.
Yeah.
April 3rd.
Looked okay to me.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 3rd, Stetson.
Kevin, second.
All in favor? Kadam?
Aye.
Stetson?
Aye.
Belkerick?
Aye.
DeShane, aye. Okay, so we will skip over the chair report since the chair is not here. Stephanie, do you have any other updates? Or
I don't. I don't. I can't think of any right now.
But let's move on. We have this other thing that I have one question after Green Hill Estates, Deborah Lee Lane request to release charity.
Yeah, and Suzanne, I don't see the request letter in the binder.
I think it was there, or you can.
I can speak to it. So Deborah Lee Lane was approved by the board as a subdivision, I think in 2016. And it has been completed. The roadway is going to remain up. Oh, I did see the plan somewhere in the binder.
It should be there.
Was it just one house added there or two at the end?
Yeah, it really was just an extension of the existing subdivision. There we go. I have the. I mean, if you want me to show the pictures, I can, but essentially the work is completed. The road's going to remain private in perpetuity. And the developer is looking for a release of the remaining bond amount, which I don't have in front of me.
But the town inspected it and all the work is done, and the developer is requesting all the surety back?
Yes.
Oh, was the bond?
Yeah.
Oh. Does anyone else have any other questions about that? Just don't ask how much it's for because we don't know right now.
Stephanie,
let's-
it's about 30,000.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
Guess it sounds okay to me.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to release the surety, Stetson.
Kevin second.
Yeah, all in favor? Stetson,
Aye.
Belkert,
Aye.
Tatum,
Hi.
DeShane, aye. Motion passes. Oh yeah, so well, that's all we have on the agenda. Stephanie, do we need to talk? It's not on the agenda, but Weber Farm, the affordable unit.
So
architecture.
I talked to Mr. Andrunas and let him know that the board wanted, do you want, it's not on the agenda. And I asked, I felt that it should be discussed. I felt the board wanted to discuss it with Mr. Andrunas present. I had an interesting conversation with me. He didn't seem to think that was necessary. He said he was going to take care of it. But I do believe the board should ask him to come in and explain what it is he intends to do or not do, because I went back out there today and everything looks the same as it has.
Okay, and he can't obtain an occupancy permit or or sell it until.
We are holding on to that. I mean, that's the leverage that the board has.
And if the board chooses to take some action, it would be the first mechanism would be the
right. So do you want me to explain to the board? I did talk to town council and I talked with Peter about this. Town council said that because this was included, the review and approval of the architecturals and the designs were part of the decision, that this would be a zoning violation, and that the action that the board could take would be to issue a zoning enforcement.
And what happens
and-
there? Is it once there's an adverse finding, is there some kind of like a lien on the property or something?
No. I think we can probably hold up the issuance of the occupancy permit, but I mean, I think eventually it can go to court. What you try to do is work with the developer to come to a solution or bring them into compliance. But it's a formal process of issuing an enforcement. And then, as Peter said, you can indicate what it is that you expect from the developer to rectify the situation, what they can do immediately to rectify.
But like, what are there like fines imposed, or how does that?
There can be fines imposed. Yes, you have the ability to impose. I think it's up to $300 for the first violation, but the way the bylaw is written, in the way the law is written that allows you to do that, is that every day is a new occurrence of the violation. So it's cumulative.
All right, but we don't have, that doesn't have to, you don't have to involve fines if the board doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, you can say, I think one of the things you can do is say, please, come into compliance, and you have until X date, and we can start assessing fines. I can talk to and I think they can be retroactive. I mean, we have enough documentation communicating with the developer.
Okay, yeah, I guess without it on the agenda, we shouldn't talk about it too much.
Yeah.
It seems kind of interesting that he hasn't just come in. We've had it open for kind of, out there for 2 meetings, and they haven't come in to talk about it, which seems a little bit.
So I will let him know that the board would like to see him at the May 8th meeting.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, it's just kind of like you feel like we should talk to
Well,
them.
we'll
before
put it
you-
on the board will put it on the agenda for discussion and action at the May 8th meeting, and we'll let Mr. Andrunas know.
Okay, thanks. Is that okay with the rest of the members? It seemed like a reasonable approach to starting to deal with that.
All good here.
I think so.
Well, that's all we have.
Motion to adjourn. Stetson.
I'll second Balsaric.
All in favor? DeShane, aye. Valkyrie.
Aye.
Stetson,
Aye.
get him. Was that an aye?
Maybe he's on mute.
Amasa, you're fine with adjourning?
He can't, he took his hair off.
Okay.
Amos.
It's the super majority.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the motion passes.
He's done.
Okay.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.